Hear me?
What's up, Oh, sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you for joining us for the second installment of the book, Wherever You Go, There You Are. This is the Year of Magical Learning podcast. We are on Reflection 190. It's book 2 of 2, but it is 190. So let's see what Chris got on for today, and we can talk about it.
Yeah. So this is the second reflection, part two of Wherever You Go, There You Are, following up on yesterday. So this particular book, just a recap, is a book about mindfulness and meditation and how to bring that to your everyday life. It's a really short book, really impactful book, a book that I plan to revisit, many times throughout the course of my life going forward. I think it's a great reminder to connect into the here and now and keep yourself kind of grounded in the present a little bit, to be just fully present in the present. Like we talked about yesterday, not just to find that magical sweet spot of the flow state, but also enjoying the flow state while you're in the flow state, aligning with your values and the meaningful work that you do, but also enjoying aligning with those values. That's like the absolute sweet spot of life, right? Is like, not just being in the moment, but also like understanding that you're in the moment and reveling in that, and then just letting life happen. So this particular reflection is about letting it go. So a conscious living versus conscious doing is what I was talking about. I don't know if I'm coining a phrase here or not. I haven't heard this from anywhere else, but this is something that I'm officially dubbing a word that I'm coining of conscious doing. So to me, what conscious doing is the act of deliberately performing actions that only align to things that you really care about at most of your core, i.e. your values, the things that you value most in this world, and deliberately performing those actions every single day and as much as you possibly can. For me, that is thinking ahead of, I love, to learn. So I'm going to actively go and actively learn in some way, shape, or form each and every single day, because I know that this is, something that aligns to my mission, my purpose, whatever it may be, right? So I think for me, summarizing all the stuff that we talk about, for me, sums up into the words conscious doing. It's like it is deliberate action that is aligned to your values and your purpose and your mission every single day, and you are moving forward toward something. You don't know where you're going, but you know how to get there, right? And that is the act of conscious doing. So that said, most of this journey has been around understanding your values, understanding what that conscious, understanding the activities that relate to that you can draw back to the concept around conscious doing, and making sure that you are just marching in the direction that you want to march, and the activities you're doing along that path are stuff that you really enjoy every single day. So that said, it's awesome. Conscious doing is awesome. Like, it's actions that have a purpose behind it. It feels great to feel like you're aligned with the present and the future, with whatever. I don't know where we're going, but like, it just feels great to feel like you're aligned, and that's the whole point of doing all this stuff, right? And I thought that was the secret to all this, but like this book, like we talked about yesterday, brought up the here and now that I had been scared of for a really long time, because the last time that I was in the here and now was one of the worst times of my life. I don't want to be in the here and now. I'd rather be marching forward, but doing the stuff that I want to do, i.e. conscious doing. This book, the author talks about something that he likes to call conscious living. So conscious living to him is the art of connecting your mind and your consciousness with what you're doing in the present moment, no matter what it is, just anything. You're taking a shower. Are you consciously living? Are you in the shower? Are you taking the shower? The answer for me a lot of times is no. And I don't really care, because the only things that I care about being conscious, that flow state that we talked about yesterday, this was the synopsis of what we talked about yesterday, was that flow state and being conscious of that's conscious living and conscious doing coming together. And that's like magical, right? But everything else, you can still have conscious living where there is no goal, there is no quest, no purpose, no meaningful activity. It's just you're being in reality, right? And that sounds boring as hell. That sounds not fun at all. The author talks about the funny thing about meditation is, if you find yourself finding meaning in meditation, you're probably doing it wrong. And if you think that you're improving in your meditation, you're probably doing it wrong. If you're preaching to others how good you feel from meditating, you're missing the whole point. The whole point is to connect to the conscious living state of just being, like that's it. Like, that is the whole freaking point of just existing and connecting to that moment. There is no good or bad meditation. There is no nothing, it's like the whole point is to just feel like nothing, almost like how I felt after Amelia had passed away. And I hate that thought. Like, that thought sucks. But if you did it intentionally, there is some benefits to that, because sometimes you just feel light and free and you can let it all go, and you can just release all the purpose and all the meaning and all the conscious doing, sometimes just be and float. This is a big lesson for me. Sometimes just letting go and being, even though it doesn't sound appealing, it doesn't fuel my dopamine, it doesn't do all that other stuff, there is some really important good value that can come from just being as well, and not trying to improve and not trying to do anything and not being outcome driven. So that was the reflection from today, being more conscientious about conscious living, even though it's kind of hard to grasp sometimes, and also kind of hard to understand the value of it. I think there is value in it. And I think this journey has helped me to find more value in just conscious living versus conscious doing. And then, as you mentioned yesterday, the sweet spot is when you do both at the same time. Like, that's heaven, basically. But yeah, I'd love to pause there and get your thoughts.
Yeah, so like maybe I need to go back to yesterday and kind of bring some of the pieces that we talked about yesterday. We're talking about the dopamine, right? The molecule form versus the molecules of here now, the
Yep.
oxytocin, right? And to me, a dopamine kind of give you a little bit of a feel good feeling, but it's like there's like a bitter aftertaste to it, because when I have these, like, I want to see myself in the future, 5 years, 10 years from now, I'm kind of encouraged and enthused about it, but at the same time, I'm also anxious about it. I'm not completely like let it go.
Right.
So like what you say in your reflection, let it go. But only when you at a point where you have the oxytocins and you're doing the things that aligns to what you value, it's has no aftertaste effect to it. I mean, there's
Yeah.
like, for me, I just feel good. I feel calm. I feel collected. I feel anchored, right? And that's how I feel. Like, to me, that to me, it's what I would like to be as my, like, the achievement of a state of mind that I want to get to. And I think that is something that I think can give you a flow state and can give you to be who you are and to let it go. Because when you in that state, in my mind, letting it go means I don't care about the next 5 minutes, next 20 minutes, the next hour, next day. Because if I'm a Mexican fisherman, I'm enjoying this thing. I'm looking at
Right.
my fishing tool, my fishing rods, or whatever, right? I'm just there because that aligns with me. I don't feel anything else. I don't see anything else. I'm not distracted by anything else. But at the same time, I'm not concerned with what the future would hold. What, you know, if something will come up and swallow me from the bottom of the ocean, I have no anxiety
Right.
because of that state. And I think having the meditation where you want to be mindfulness of your current situations in your environment, that could be hell as well, because you look at your perspective from the time when you have to deal with the atomic bomb. That is just hell for you, and for you to be facing and be mindfulness at that state, right? I'm not even sure if you or anyone you know can take it. I mean,
No.
it's
No.
so
I
much
mean,
pain. It's so much
you can't.
pain that
Yeah.
I don't think you can take it. To me, that's why I think a lot of these books I don't 100% agree with it, because they don't give you the pieces that goes before this, right? Because they
Right.
say, hey, you meditate and you don't think about meditation. You don't think about how you feel good. You just say, hey, you have to talk to somebody about how good meditation makes you feel, then you're not doing it right. What the hell do you mean?
No, I think that makes a ton of sense. Just so you know, like, I mean, it's funny because it's the whole point of meditation is to just be. There is no
No, I
right or
disagree,
wrong.
because it's not about just be. Because if you were to meditate when you were your atomic bomb, can you meditate?
I could have, and I would have not wanted to. Like, I
You
mean,
can't. No, you
yeah.
can't. You
Oh,
can't, because
I could have. I did. That's all
because
I
the
did,
thing is,
actually.
it's only so much you can take,
Well,
as far
that's
as
my
the
point. Is in
threshold of pain that you can take. And if you don't have any kind of dopamine at that point in time, right? The dopamine is that you have this hope that Amelia will make it Okay, that's how you were able to get through where the 2 months that you were in the NICU.
Yeah.
To me, without the dopamine, you won't be able to take it. If you
No.
were to meditate and practice mindfulness at that time, you won't make it either. You're gonna go
Well,
into a depression, and you probably gonna have this PTSD, just like the soldiers would have coming back from a war, because there's certain threshold, there's certain level of threshold that you can only take. They can not take anymore. That's why I'm saying is meditations is one of those things where it depends on where you are. Are you aligning with your core values? If I asked you, if you would play tennis, right? I mean, how does it feel for you to play tennis versus when you have to do something that you don't like? Maybe be on a sales meeting that doesn't go anywhere, right? That's two different set of emotion that triggers from within yourself.
right.
And I think having a meditations to be, hey, I am in the zone playing tennis, or I'm in the zone in a boring, useless meeting, right? Let's say you have to do that for 5 hours straight. Like, to me, like, we tried to do nothing for 30 minutes. It was like pulling teeth,
It
right?
is. It's
That's what
pretty
I'm saying
brutal.
is being mindfulness at that moment. It doesn't work because that's not where you want to be. Just like you talk about the shower. For you, right? Shower doesn't mean anything to you. I just say, hey, I just had to do something to get myself clean, but it has nothing to do with the thing I value. So therefore, why am I meditating? Why am I being mindfulness about taking a shower and feeling the water hitting my skin and feeling it roll down my back or whatever?
That's the point. Is there's no point. Like, that's what he's trying to say. There is no point to any of this. It is just existing. Like, I mean, and when you so I just
What's
read
the difference between existing and not existing?
I just finished this book a couple of weeks ago called The Five Invitations. It's about this guy that was the director of this thing called the Zen Hospice Project in San Francisco. It's a hospice where people go to die. They specifically started this back in the 80s around the AIDS epidemic, and that was one of the epicenters of AIDS. So this guy personally has spent 30 years of his life and personally helped people, over 1,000 people, transition from their last few days of life into whatever comes next, right? And he summarized that book into his 5 invitations that he learned from those people and what he learned from them during that time. And I think the thing that I learned from that book is, and we'll get to those lessons later on, but it's the surrender, and it's just being with your pain and being in all that, in that space, and letting go of the conscious doing.
I just think that being with your pain is like, go back to what we talked about before, is let's eat the frog. I mean, the thing is, I mean, why? Why do you want to embrace the suck, right? That's what we've been saying all along, is don't embrace the suck, right? Don't be a donkey in the shed, right? Don't run uphill, don't eat the frog. And here you're telling me, hey, just be what? Be things you don't want to be. What's the point?
I mean, it's a good question. I don't know the answer, and I don't know that anybody knows the answer to this. I guess what I was kind of getting to is, at that stage of your life, like, the conscious doing aspect is over. There is no more conscious doing every single day. And when you can't do anything anymore, when you're literally dying and you're leaving this world, there is no more conscious doing. And that sucks. Like, that's scary.
If let's say if you're in pain, right? You have this pain that you're like last day, last moment on earth, right? Are you saying, hey, be conscious of your pain, be conscious of the thing that you're leaving behind, right? That's what I'm hearing that you're supposed to do. And I disagree with that. It's like eating the frog.
Letting go, but it's like letting go of the conscious doing eventually.
Oh no, I think for me, the letting go is the different perspective from my mind, is letting go of, say, there are certain things that for whatever reason you think is important. You need to let it go. For example, in my mind, if I know that, hey, I look like a fucking beaver, right? And people tell me be like majestic like an eagle, be like dominating like a lion. You should strive to do that. For me, if I'm not a lion, I should let go of all these things that is not me. Putting things down is not me, letting go, but embrace who you are. And once you embrace who you are, then you get to the point where you can be in a flow state because you like to do the things that aligns with you. If you look at a kid, for example, right? Now imagine you have a son or daughter, and he or she grows up. Imagine if when he or she tries to stand up and try to walk, try to stop her from doing it. Try to stop a kid from trying to walk.
I understand what you're saying.
There are certain things that make that person in a flow state, meaning that human beings, we have the gene that needs to walk upright on 2 feet. Therefore, we, for whatever reason, are compelled to want to try to walk. You cannot. For me, like if you say, well, the kid started to walk and just put them down, right? You cannot stop any kid with all the faculty in place from walking. And 100 out of 100, a million out of a million, 7 billion out of 7 billion of all human beings have walked. So to me, this is called alignment with who you are, because it causes you to be in a flow state. When you get to the point where I'm a human being, I walk, that feels good. I don't want to walk on my knees and hands like the animals,
Okay, hang on.
This is when you can be
meaningful work.
Be who you are, and you can be mindful because, hey, look, I am in my state, in my zone, that I can do that. Just like you playing tennis, you're in the zone. You don't go in the zone in the meeting.
I agree. The pinnacle of our being in general is when you can connect conscious doing and conscious living together in the moment, i.e. flow state, and you can experience that as much as you can throughout the course of the day. You can't do that 24/7 in the course of the day. It's not possible, in my opinion. I mean, I shouldn't say it's not possible. I don't think that would even be fun. Like, I don't want to be in the flow state all fucking day. The rest of the day is a state of either unconscious doing, where you're just doing shit you don't want to do, or unconscious living. There is a state that exists between that mecca that you're talking about that I agree with. But at a certain point in time, you can't do it anymore. No matter what, there will come a time when you will no longer say it will be less and less because you can't do it anymore.
What I'm saying is, look at a flow state as a state of being. I look at a flow state as the balance, inner core, because the flow state is okay. Because the thing is, you imagine going too far to the left, oh, it's too much. Imagine going too far to the right, oh, it's too much, right? Imagine being on a bicycle. You're gonna say, hey, I'm in a flow state. You're always constantly in a balance. When you're in a balanced state, that's a flow state. It's not a thing where you go, okay, this is a destination where you get to, and that's it. The flow state is the actual balance, because for me and you, our center of balance are different for me and for you. So your center of balance, your center of flow state, it's going to be different. For example, I think, okay, I'm more of an introvert than you. So 80% of the time, I don't want to talk to anyone.
Right.
I just don't want to talk. For you, you're a social kind of guy. 80% of the time, you want to socialize. You want to meet new people, want to talk to people. That's
new people,
your center.
I like talking to people.
Yeah, whatever. You get the point, right? That's what I'm saying is my center of balance is 80% thinking to myself, being by myself. I don't want anyone like in my vicinity. I want to be like completely left alone. And at 20%, I want to do, other things with people. That's my center of balance. And that gives me a flow state. For you, it's the other side. It's not the same for me and you, right? That means that a flow state for me is not having anyone talking to me. It's having the 20%. That's a flow state.
Right.
So for you, for example, let's say you want to play tennis, right? You only play like 4 out of 5, 4 days out of 5 days, or 4 days out of the week, or whatever. That's your flow state, because it's not like all 7 days or all 24/7, because and it could be depending on who you are, but the flow state isn't to say that it's all this or all that. It's the balance of where you think you should be. You understand what I'm saying? Because that's how I see you becoming balanced. Because you think about me, let's say I'm an introvert, right? And to me, to be by myself and do nothing, right? It's not good. I cannot be in a flow state. I said, well, there's no one here. right? But because I know there's people around me, but I just want to sit in my room and do nothing.
When you get to the state of dying, it feels like as life goes on, your time that you can be in that flow state, I guess, if you will, the connecting of those two, it's going to diminish, right? And then you're left with this, like, can you die better than somebody else? Like, no, you just die. Like, you know what I mean?
So the thing is, let me ask you
Hang
this
on, let me
question
finish
then.
it.
If you were to say, like, my life is at an end, right? You want an ending that is painful, or you want an ending that's peaceful? Which would you want? No. Let's say I throw you in a pit of despair, a bunch of snakes or whatever that scares you the most. I throw you in a pit of despair, or give you something that gently take you down to the path where you just completely become unconscious and leave the earth. Right? That's the thing.
But how do you know
You
that
don't.
wasn't painful to slowly lose all your meaningful work and your conscious doing and your flow state? And like, that's
It's
painful.
it's to pass.
That hurts a lot.
If you either to pass on in your sleep or pass on in a tragic accident. That's what I'm saying. If you're looking at, I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying, hey, which one would you prefer? Some people prefer. I don't know.
I mean,
I
a part of me would rather, if I was gonna die, I'd rather just die. Like, instantaneous. Like, I'd
no.
rather.
I mean, you're
I'd
talking
rather.
about there are a lot of people who thinks that dying in your bed is shameful.
Who?
There are a lot
Who the hell? Who thinks that?
go back to the history, right? They rather die in a battle
I see what you're saying.
than to die. There is a
They'd
saying.
rather die doing something meaningful
They'd
and live
rather
in their purpose.
right.
Yeah.
They'd rather die in the battlefield. So
Yeah.
that's the gist of it. What I'm saying is that people are afraid of a meaningless death. Okay,
Yeah.
they would rather be in the battlefield and get gorged by spears and whatever, and rather than dying at home in bed. Right? They want to die a heroic death. That's what they want. Okay, and so that's what I'm saying. It depends on the people, right? You want to project your wants and desire as that person to be whatever it is, because when somebody die, right, they imagine Jesus coming to get them, and they imagine the afterlife, whatever. They don't imagine, hey, this is the end, right? There's nothing, they go to hell, whatever, right? They imagine something bad. I mean, that's why a lot of people, when they get older, right, they say they're always very devoted to religion for for obvious reason, right? Is that, do you think about to be just
That's because they've been learning to let it go for a long time. Like, they've been slowly watching stuff that they really cared.
they're
Really cared about.
they're hanging on to the
I
possibility of
agree.
going to a better place. That's why they're devoted.
I wholeheartedly disagree with that. I think they've learned the lessons of life. They know, there is another end of the spectrum. Like, conscious doing, like, you're talking about going out in the glory of battle or something like that, right? Like, I get it.
No, I think that's just certain people who has.
No, I was saying, like, that you're talking about going out doing meaningful work, right?
The selfish gene's still intact. It's going to say, well, I'm doing this because I want to get that. I'm doing this because I want to get this. Whatever the case, right? Because they say, well, I am devoted to religion. Because I don't want the alternatives. Because it's always that trade-off of saying, because if you think, hey, life, you just exist. And when you die, you just don't exist anymore. People look at that and they become despair because that's not what they're being told, or that's not what they think about. Then
I'm just saying that you can't discount the fact that at the end of the day,
you can't just exist. You have to live your life. Because to me, just exist is like the living dead, right? You're dead inside. You have nothing to do. You just, this is where we did differ, because thinking to exist in a state in a flow state of who you are, that is a blissful existence. But to exist is a miserable hell.
I don't know. I think we do actually disagree. I think this is the first time in a long time that we fundamentally disagree with you on this, only because conscious doing doesn't come with no anxiety. Like I have anxiety about conscious doing. Like I have anxiety
Or
around this
maybe you're doing it
project.
wrong.
Hey, look, Amelia, you and I are going to go do this, and I got to go find time, and I got to make sure that I don't run for other trains, and I got to say no to these other things so we can go do these things together, right? Like, I mean, and that doesn't come with no stress. Like, that doesn't come, even the act
The
of
stress
doing
came
this
because
stuff.
you running for train, which is what you don't believe in. That's the stress come from.
No, I agree, but I'm saying there is unconscious doing, which is running for trains and all the other stuff. There's conscious doing, but both of those activities, when you do anything, it comes with a certain level of stress. Like it just does. Like I mean, there is nothing that you can say. Like even the act that you're performing comes with stress. When I go on a run, I am literally stressing myself, whether or not I am mentally stressed. I'm
Do you
physically stressing myself
let's say you breathe, right? Do you stress when you breathe?
when I'm running. Yeah,
No, no, I'm asking you running. I'm asking like you breathe normally. Like
sometimes.
right now, then you're doing something wrong. Your health is something wrong with your health, dude.
No, no, I'm saying when you say stress,
You and
like
I were talking, right? Do you
yeah,
think about breathing?
not until you just told me to think about breathing, but I mean,
Exactly. But I'm saying is when you're in a state where you're supposed to be, you don't feel any stress. You want to breathe.
right.
Imagine you stop breathing. What happens to you? How do you feel when you stop breathing for three
Actually,
minutes,
I feel pretty good,
6
honestly.
minutes,
Yeah.
six
Well, I mean,
minutes,
eventually I'll feel
minutes,
good. I mean, yeah.
20 minutes?
Eventually I
Okay,
die.
I can push whatever you want to push,
Right,
but
right,
my point is still there because you think about it, right? The things that you do because you're made to do that because we breathe in the oxygen. So
right,
imagine you don't breathe in the oxygen, or imagine you breathe all oxygen. You're gonna suffocate.
right.
Imagine you don't exhale the CO2, right? You're gonna suffocate too, because I think it's the state of the ratio between the exchange of the oxygen and the CO2 that gives you your flow state. You don't feel any stress, any concern, any anxiety from breathing, and you want to breathe, and you say, "Well, I feel good."
Well,
That's
so
to me, that's a flow state. You can say, hey, I can walk up the mountain. You still have oxygen, you still have carbon dioxide, but the exchange is not what the optimal pivot of your balance is. You feel anxious. You feel like you're huffing and puffing and it's hard to breathe. To me, that's my point because you can't say, well, I'm going to be existing or I'm going to do, whatever to do that. The thing is, the pain comes to tell you, hey, you are not where you're supposed to be. It's kind of push you to left or right to the point where you need to kind of like settle down in a state where that's who you are. Then once you have that, then be more conscious of that, be existing in that state, in that flow state more than the other. You still have the anxious and concern because you and I, like me, I mean, me and you are not completely in a flow state because we still have other things in society that we have to be responsible for. I can't just take my kids out of school today because the society say, hey, you have to take your kids to school, otherwise I'm going to put you in jail. You have to deal with you are taking your son to daycare. That's something that you don't agree with, but it's not like you can do anything about it. You still have to go to this meeting because you still have to put food in. You still have to pay taxes. They enforce this tax on you to say, hey, to live here, you need to pay taxes. So in order for you to pay taxes, you need to work. The anxiety comes from the things that you're doing, like the running for a train that you don't want to do, but it isn't because of anything that aligns to your core values, right? It's just a thing that you do because there are certain residuals of the societies and the things that you do to kind of get to the center of your gravity that is going to be the concern comes from. Just like when you ride on a bike, right? You're not completely professional at that point, right? You're gonna lean a little bit and you say, "Oh, I'm gonna lean," and then back. The act of over leaning to one side and to another side causes anxiety. But once you have the balance and the full control of that bicycle, then you're only thinking about like, hey, the wind in my face or the going downhill and I'm going this fast and I feel exhilarating or whatever. You don't think about the balancing or the concern of the sway to the left or the sway to the right, right? That's when you get to the point where because the thing is, don't run for train is a concept that we practice, right? but it's not to the point where you are really 100% in control over that art. Just like riding a bicycle, you're not 100% in control of that bicycle, because when you first start to learn, you're gonna wobble. You're gonna wobble because that's the balance is off, and you feel, oh, I'm scared, I'm anxious, right?
I think on this particular topic, I'm not disagreeing with anything you just said. Like we talked about yesterday, we are in lockstep alignment as to the ideal state that you and I would both rather be in. But I can't discount the fact that just existing exists. Like, it doesn't mean that just because you could strive to do all the things you're talking about doing, but sometimes there is no point to anything. Like, sometimes it is just be, like, and sometimes you got to be happy with that. Like, in my opinion, these days, at least that's what I'm trying to work on. And
Well, to me, there's a fine line between what you said and what we are striving to do. Because if you say be happy with where you are, right, and you are happening to be eating the frog for whatever reason, right, you eating the frog for the past 40, 50, 30 years, however long you've been eating that frog, and then you say, well, be happy, I'm eating the frog.
We're talking about two different things. You're talking about the art of living, and I agree with you. Like, the art of living and living to the fullest is don't eat the frog. It's run downhill. It's conscious doing, combining all the stuff that we just talked about. But then there's also like the art of just existing too. Like, there is something.
I don't understand what you're saying by just the art of just existing. Explain to me what you mean by that. I think I'm still confused when you say the art of just existing.
We're here and then we're not, like, and that's that. Like, and like that is a part of our reality. Like, we can fill that time with whatever we want to fill that time with, but at the same time, like, and that's the art of living. If you want, how can you make sure that you spend as much time as you can in the I'm trying to use words that are not superlative or like outcome driven. The art of living is the art of embracing this earth and your existence to the fullest, right? Of every single minute of every single day that you have the privilege to be on this earth. I'm saying there is that isn't, in my opinion. I'm not going to say that it's not possible, but I don't know that I would even want to live my entire existence in that state either.
To me, it's like this, you're telling me that, hey, I'm a beaver. Sometimes I gotta be a lion. That's what you're saying to me.
No, I'm not. I'm saying sometimes you got to still be a beaver, but do nothing. Like, when you say I got to be a beaver,
no, part of being a beaver.
No, it's not, because when you say I got to be a beaver, what you mean is I got to dam. Like, and that's what you mean.
What I said to you before, okay? This is what they call flow state. Flow state is not a destination. It's not an object. It's not a place to be. It is the constant balance. The core of your balance is called flow state, meaning that when you are damming, right, you're damming 80% and you do nothing 20%. But if you're at 40, 60, 40 or 40, 60, right, that's not balance. And you don't want to exist in 60, 40. You want to get to the point where you are completely rested in that cusp of the center of your balance. Then, because that's what I'm saying is doing nothing is part of being a beaver. Because he don't want to build dams every minute, every second of his life. That's not what I'm saying. At the center of the balance for him, the way he is the best beaver is he's 80%, whatever the ratio is, 80%, 20%, 80% building dams and 20% do nothing, or whatever the ratio is. And that's what I'm saying, right? For me, it's like I like to be left alone 80% of the time, right? And go talk to people 20% of the time, or whatever that thing is. But that's how I feel. I cannot be happy if I be alone by myself 100%, not even 99%, not even 85% of the time, right? Not even 90%, because it's not my ideal core balance, center of balance for me on that grand spectrum, right? And for you, it's a different state. So part of the beaver is not doing anything, doing nothing. Part of that is included. That's what I meant.
What happens when you're a beaver and you can no longer dam?
Then that's when you cease to exist, you die.
I don't think so.
No one can ever live past beyond the ability to achieve their purpose. If you have a purpose and you want to do it and you don't have the ability to do that anymore, then you cease to exist. You will die. You have no will to live. And that's the important part, is the will of your expression is so important. People die early or late because they have a will. Some people can last longer than predicted because they have a will to live, or people who die quicker because they don't have the will to live. No one exists, just exists.
That I need to think about this one more, because it's an interesting, I know we're disconnected on this one for some reason, and I'm not sure that
it's the understanding. It's understanding, because to me, this is a pretty complex topic, and
it is. That's what I'm saying.
It needs to have an understanding, and what I understand may be different from what you understand. We can probably look at the same object, but we're describing it differently. For me, it's like the flow state, and what you're seeing is one part of it. I see doing nothing is part of the cumulative object that we're looking at, right? Versus just, hey, I'm building dams all day long, or I'm playing tennis all day long. For me, is I'm looking at that object, and you may be like, hey, I'm looking only at this part versus the other part. This is where the disconnect comes in, until you can discuss more about it, and you get to the point where, okay, you agree that this part here is both green or it's both whatever. We start to agree, and we start to explore more, then we may come to the same understanding of what we're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on. I think more discussion is warranted around this particular topic, because we're not aligned on this one yet. Not that we always have to be, but I want to understand what you're saying.
You cannot be aligned if you don't understand.
Right.
So that point, I hope, what do you see that I cannot see? And then you can tell me about it. You and I are standing back to back, right? I'm looking west and you're looking east. There's no way you can see what I see.
Right.
I can't see what you see. So that's why I'm talking to you. Right. You say, I don't see the sun. Right?
Well, so actually, to that line of thought, I don't know that I even know what I'm not seeing on this other side of the spectrum, because we spend so much time, at least you and I spend so much time talking about.
We need more discussion. Just like, imagine like the sun, right?
Right. We don't explore.
One time is on the east side, one time's on the west side. The moment you see it and I don't see it, right? You can say, well, yeah, I see the same thing. No, we can't.
We don't explore this side as much as we explore the other side. So like, I feel like you and I, when we talk about conscious doing, we know exactly what we're talking about. Like when we're talking about conscious living, I don't know that you and I know exactly what either one of us are talking about yet, because we haven't spent as much time exploring that aspect of all this stuff as we've done on the other end of the spectrum. So I'm saying that on my own end, I haven't refined my own thoughts and reflected and done actions where I can eloquently describe to you what I'm even trying to say. So if I can't understand exactly what I'm trying to say, then how the hell are you going to? And then it's going to end up in these kind of conversations and vice versa, right?
You know, I think that's the process. It's for us to say, hey, I'm seeing this. You're seeing that. Explain more. What do you mean? Right. Then eventually we have more common link between what we see, and then, the sun actually moved from the east to the west. Right? That's it. Yeah. Okay, it's actually the fucking same sun. It's the same fucking sun that we looked at. You know, it just depending on the time of day we're looking at it, then it makes more sense, right? But right now I'm painting one picture and you're painting another picture, right? You say, hey, the shadow is casting this way, and I say, there's no shadow.
I want to go explore my own a little bit further. Maybe I'll do meditation as my challenge next month or something like that, because maybe that'll give me a little bit more of a basis point to have this conversation, because I know the feeling of feeling nothing, and there isn't. Sometimes it's nice, you know, like when it's done. This is what I'm saying is, when you are in a flow state, when you feel nothing, it feels nice. Because imagine you have all the faculty, you're healthy, you have no concern. Whenever you have that and you do nothing, it feels nice. But what happens if your head is pounding you because you have this migraine, and then you say, well, I want to be nothing. Yeah. No, it doesn't work. It does not work. I'm talking about in a state where you're healthy, nothing's hurting, nothing's concerning. You don't have to worry about money to pay for whatever, right? Because you're in a state where you're supposed to be, and you like, hey, I just want to feel nothing. Oh yeah, it feels good. You're talking about intentional. You're talking about intentional living.
It exists in pain when you have a headache, a splitting headache. To exist and to
I agree
meditate
with that.
when
Like
you do that, right? It's you can't exist.
That's no different than saying like, oh, I do conscious doing and I'm busy from the moment that I wake up until the moment that I go to bed. And I'm like, you're doing it wrong. Like you shouldn't be doing that all day. Like, yes, you do have meetings scheduled all day long. And yes, you are doing a lot of things, like consciously doing a lot of things, but like it's not with intentional design behind it. There is no there, that's unconscious to me. Like that's unconscious doing.
Yeah,
Like you're talking
just
about
like what I have
unconscious
said. No,
living.
just like what you're saying is if I take you up the mountain and let you sit there, right? Let you sit there and tell you to to exist. You're gonna suffer. You can't. You say, well, this because you can't breathe because your ratio of oxygen and carbon dioxide, and because the air thinner up in the mountain, right? Like you're not used to it yet. I'm just gonna take a helicopter and plug you up and put you on a mountain, let you sit there, right? I sit there in a cold air with different temperature and different ratio of air, right? And let you sit there and tell you to be existing, to be conscious of your existing. That to me is hellish because you're not in a core of your balance, meaning that you're used to the ratio of air here, right? And temperature here that you used to be, right? When you say, hey, I can meditate and I can do nothing and feel nothing, oh, it feels nice because you at a place where you're supposed to be. And you put yourself in a place you're not supposed to be and tell you to exist, that is going to be miserable.
I think we're gonna have to put a pin on this one and revisit it in the future because I have to go run for some trains. But nobody's perfect. Any final thoughts? Question we could leave for everybody as well is what would it feel like if you just let go every once in a while and just existed? Any final thoughts?
But that's what I'm saying is, you have to think about what does this exist means to you.
I agree. I mean, that's a good question. Definitely something that
like you can say, well, what does letting go mean? Let go who I am, letting go what it, what does it mean to you? And to exist, what does it mean to exist for you? That's subjective.
Well, for me, it means letting go of sometimes of my conscious doing, which is very much so
letting go of things that doesn't.
I didn't say I don't do them. I'm saying letting go of the fact that it's okay sometimes if I don't do it.
Right, because I'm saying is, anyway, if you're doing things today, and then you say, well, I need to let go because that is not important to me. For example, I say, hey, you, Chris, give me Luca. Let go of your son. Would you do it? If I tell you, Chris, let go of Miria, let me take over her memory, and you just let her go. I pay you $1 million fucking dollars. Would you let go? That's what I mean when I'm saying there's certain things that value you. You're letting go of things not important to you. That is the right letting go.
That was a really interesting comment, but all right, I gotta go. I gotta put a pin on it. All right, well, we will see you all tomorrow. I will have an answer for you then. Okay.
Looking forward to it. Okay. See you guys. Bye.